Hello guys, it's time to book the next episode of TNA Impact and we're pretty much headed towards the Turning Point pay-per-view which is on November 7th, so this week we are 10 days out from this pay-per-view or we are 2 weeks away. This is of course the last show where the takeaway was that Bischoff decided to give Dinero his rematch for the world title due to Dinero's demands. That his feet were under the ropes. Bischoff also appointed Brian Hebner as a senior referee. Then we got a bunch of angles surrounding the X Division. Anderson was really disappointed with Bischoff's decision to make the match for Turning Point in such fashion, but Bischoff said he's the authority, so there's no shit there. Then we got Jarrett accepting Sting's challenge, and Sting has to put his career on the line. Then we got the Flair challenging Robbie E to a match where if Robbie beats him, he'll get his rematch for the global title. Basically, in the main event, Mr. Anderson and Jay Lethal defeated Dinero and Devon, but they got beaten down after a match by the congregation, and that's how the show ended. And of course, if you want to check out this show in full review, you can watch the previous episode because we are moving towards the October 28th edition of Impact, which is the show that I just booked. So, as I have said on the last episode, the so-called recap segment is gonna be gone because I don't really think there's a point in putting a recap when I'm already recapping everything and I'm already, explaining the storylines and shit. So, the show will open with a backstage footage where Flair will be shown warming up for his first match in years. He takes on Robbie E tonight. So the actual show will open with the congregation and Dinero will talk trash and he'll talk about beating up Lito and Anderson last week. He'll be cocky. But of course Lito will come out, he'll interrupt Dinero and he will challenge him to a one-on-one match for the global title tonight. Because Lita wants to get revenge for getting beaten up last week by his congregation. Bischoff, here is the interesting thing. Bischoff will book the match, but he'll actually put Anderson as a guest referee to show him that he's not biased. Because in the last episode, when Bischoff booked the Turning Point match between Dinero and Anderson, he decided to cater to Dinero's demands and remove Earl Hebner as the senior referee for the world title match and actually put his son Brian. And Anderson was pretty disappointed with this decision. He was, I guess, feeling that Bischoff is kind of biased towards the heel, and actually the positioning of Bischoff for maybe from the start of the game as a GM is purely in a tweener role. I'm not really having him side with either heels or baby faces. He's just there to enforce the rules and to book the matches where it's needed. So as far as for now, Bischoff is not a heel, he's not a baby face. So he's actually going to come out here, he's going to book Lito and Dinero for the global title tonight, and he's actually going to put Mr. Anderson as a guest referee for the match. And this is supposed to be the way to make Anderson, have confidence in Bischoff and not be, don't think that Bischoff is biased towards the Pope or anything like this. I'm explaining this in detail because this may play into the storyline later on. I'm not talking about in next episode, but in the bigger picture. Since you already know, guys, when Anderson was a heel, Bischoff was accusing him of being actually sided with Jarrett and World Elite, and this wasn't the case because Anderson was beaten up by Jarrett and World Elite. This was maybe a few months ago, and then Anderson turned babyface, and right now Anderson is the world champ babyface. So I guess Bischoff always had some sort of a I don't know what to say. Bischoff was always suspicious about Anderson and his motivations about anything on the show. So this was the first segment that we set up the main event. Then we got a 6-man tag between Angelina Love, Tara, and Gail Kim, and they defeated the Beautiful People in full format. Velvet Madison, Tez Macker, Gail pinned Velvet. And on the next week's show, we're going to have a number 1 contendership match for the Knockouts title to see who will measure up against Angelina at the pay-per-view. Then we're going to have Joe calling out Kazarian. He wanted to fight him for winning his X-title match last week. Last week, Kazarian interfered in the Aries and Joe match, which was supposed to be an open challenge, and he actually attacked Joe to cause a DQ. Kazarian on this show will tell Joe that he's not fighting tonight, and his actual purpose behind the move of attacking Joe was that he feels like nobody's deserving the X-title shot. So the Aries and Kazarian feud is done, but I feel like in order to transition to something else, we need to keep Kazarian's motivations around recapturing the X Division title, and this is a great way to kind of transition to Joe and Kazarian in this way, because Joe actually got screwed. Joe accepted Aries' challenge and got screwed last week, so this is how we're gonna continue this, I guess, new rivalry. Then we got the X Division actually open challenge, and Austin Aries will defeat Amazing Red in a great match via Brainbuster. But actually, in the post-match, when Aries will celebrate, British Invasion is gonna come out and they will deliver a beatdown on Aries with Douglas Williams standing tall. So this is supposed to set up, I guess, Douglas Williams and Aries for the X title, but we are gonna see how this will develop next week. Because my initial idea is to put Joe and Kazarian in a storyline, and this is how I used the open challenge. And Aries also needs a new challenger for the pay-per-view, so we'll see how this develops. The Eric Young storyline is developing. He will tell the LAX, which are Hernandez and Homicide, for the past following weeks. First he lost to Homicide, and then he lost to Hernandez, and he's gonna say that he's gonna tell them it's not about winning the matches, it's about the fighting spirit. So he's kind of trying to get them on his side, I guess. Eric Young is a babyface here, they're the heels, so it's kind of a weird storyline. But you know that all my storylines are always starting slow and then having a payoff later on. Like the Pope storyline, where we started with like the Pope kind of telling us that he has found religion, he found the congregation, and then this whole thing with the Pope started back in like June or July when he first started tagging with Orlando Jordan, and this kind of built up to where right now the Pope is actually challenging for the world title with a big stable, behind him. So my booking is always this kind of way. I don't like hot-shotting stables. I don't like hot-shotting tag teams. I don't like hot-shotting anything. I like to have slow builds, and if I will hot-shot anything, it will be for a reason. So the next thing on the show is going to be Robbie E actually beating Ric Flair via figure 4 after Christy Hemme, which is Robbie's girlfriend, delivers a low blow on Flair, and then so Robbie is getting his global title rematch at Turning Point, and Ric Flair has lost the first match in years that he has participated in. Then we have a tag match where Beer Money will defeat Morgan and Tomko, I guess via some sort of a cheating or an inside cradle, but then they will brawl with Hardy and Rob Van Dam, who will come out, and this way it will continue the Beer Money and Hardy and RVD feud. Then we have the Guns calling out Styles and Daniels, and Sabi will mention that last week he pinned Daniels in the 8-man tag team match. So Styles and Daniels are pretty much gonna be over it, he'll just say that, alright, you're gonna get your rematch for Turning Point, and it will be a Full Metal Mayhem match. So Styles is pretty much gonna ensure saving that they will get their rematch. Because these teams never got into a proper match 2-on-2. At Bound for Glory, it was a 3-way, and Styles and Aries retained over beating British Invasion. So then this confrontation is gonna be followed by the Guns taking on Generation Me, and they're gonna beat them via DQ. Styles and Daniels, I guess, are gonna retreat for a while at the commentary before attacking the Guns with steel chairs to get the heat back on them. Then we're gonna have Sting announcing that the contract signing with Jarrett is gonna take place next week, so this will be huge for both those guys. So next week is gonna be the last week for either Sting or Jeff Jarrett on TNA Impact. But of course we're gonna have a tag match first. The tag match is gonna be Sting and Angle beating Jarrett and Abyss. Pretty standard match. Gunner is gonna sit at ringside. I guess it's some sort. Of course, most of the match is gonna be played out by Jarrett and Angle to keep Sting and Jarrett, in opposite ways. And most of the match is gonna be carried by Abyss, who is gonna take the pin. So Jarrett is gonna remain strong. Then we have the video vignettes about the debut of Crimson. If I remember correctly, Crimson debuted in TNA in real life in the end of 2010. He was part of Jeff Jarrett's MMA challenge. So I want to debut Crimson here soon, I guess. So I have some plans about him, but I'm gonna first run a few weeks of videos hyping his debut before actually moving in with this idea. And I have already explained that the point of this booking of TNA is to have most of the TNA guys that were originally there. I can show you guys, like Randy Orton is at the end of his contract. I have pretty much beaten WWE as far as the #1 company, so I can steal a lot of the WWE guys, but I don't want this to turn into a WWE safe. I like to keep it with strictly TNA guys. Of course, with times passing, we're gonna have some of the WWE guys. I already had Zack Ryder on the roster. He's kind of forgotten since he's not really appeared in a while. I have gotten Carlito, but if I get some WWE guys, it may have they probably will be like mid-carders, or I just don't want to do a TNA game where it will be so unrealistic and we're gonna have like John Cena and Randy Orton, guys like this. I feel like it's unnecessary. If I want to book a WWE game, I'm gonna start a WWE game. Actually, I had plans to book a Lucha Underground game, but I haven't really started developing any storylines there, and it's probably gonna be a while. This game is really consuming most of my time when I'm sitting at the PC, and when I'm sitting at the PC, I'm always thinking of new ideas, how to continue the storylines and shit on TNA. You know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to book a good show every week, I guess, or have a direction as far as storyline goes for a lot of time. So, and I have already, I am already running this game for like 11 months now, or 10 months. I have actually begun the game in the beginning of the year, but I actually started doing the video series. I think it was after the Destination X pay-per-view, which was in March. So, yeah. I got carried away here, but basically after the video vignettes about Crimson, we're gonna have Lito. He will be shown preparing for the title match, warming up. He's gonna show his disappointment about Flair's loss, and he already know that he has to defend the global title against Robbie E if he retains here. And of course he's gonna retain, because the whole point of this main event match for the global title is to continue the feud between Aries and Dinero and just use Lito as a crutch here. Lito is gonna defeat Dinero when Anderson will use his authority to screw Dinero with the referee attack. After the show, Anderson is gonna perform the mic check and he will close the show. And actually, the babyface is gonna close the show this time. Since last week the congregation closed the show, this week we're gonna have Anderson close the show. So the whole point of this main event was to continue for the storyline and get some heat on the Anderson and Dinero feud. Jay Leto has retained the global title. He's kind of getting elevated here by participating in 2 main events in a row. And actually Anderson is going to stood tall. And I believe on the next week's show I have another tag match. Or I have to just see it. I haven't really seen the script for next week's show. As you know, I'm always scripting the shows in advance. So we actually got one more show, which is the November 4th show. I have already skipped through it. I'm gonna probably book it in a while. Yeah, so here is what I have just told you guys. Randy Orton's contract is coming to an end. A lot of other guys. You got Brock Lesnar, Jushin Liger. I've got nothing against these guys, but as far as this is a TNA safe, I don't want to fill it with a bunch of WWE guys. Plus, I have a lot of experience as far as this game goes, and I have booked a lot of these guys. Like in the past, I have run a WWE All-Star game for like 5 years, and I have already booked like most of the guys that are possible. So it's not a challenge for me. I just want to deal with the TNA guys, you know. So we got one more show left. We got the Go Home show left, and then we're moving on towards the Turning Point pay-per-view. So we'll see the last installments on most of the feud on next week's show. I think this week's show turned out to be alright, so we will catch up next episode.